I just want to ask you about Darrell Baker Jr. Just had an interesting past month from you take it from the Browns game to not playing to playing again. How do you think he's just handled some of the ups and downs when it's really some of the first ups and downs he's faced since he's such a young player?
Yeah, you know what? I mentioned this before that he is a true pro now. That's what DJ. I mean, his demeanor, how he handles things, and you're right. It was a tough month for him, to go from starting and then not, and then come back, and but I think that he's really grown in there. That competitive endurance to play the same play on play one to play 62 or whatever that case is, how many plays it is. You can see that becoming more and more part of his game. So, it's a credit to him, but I think because of his attitude, he's a true pro. It helped him bounce through that tough month.
Just a quick follow-up. How much help do you get from guys like Kenny Moore, Julian Blackman with those young players to sort of keep them, working through things like this?
Right. Great help. You can see them. They're on their own a little bit, but as soon as there's a little adversity, they have a tendency to go to Kenny, to go to JB. And, it's almost like that father figure type. They don't need him until they need him. And then when they do, they have that guy in the locker room to visit with. So both Kenny and JB have done a great job with those young guys.
George?
Kind of building off Nate's question, Baker Mayfield said after the game, a couple of the sacks were coverage sacks. We all know how important that rush cover relationship is. Having had this defensive backs group together now, the same group for a couple of weeks, are you seeing them get a little more comfortable? Are you seeing the young guys maybe get a little more confidence in their roles? And do you see that coverage maybe holding up more of its end of the bargain?
Yeah, I would say that's a great observation because I believe too the sacks that we had was a great illustration of rush and cover work together. I don't know, at times, maybe, a buck beat a guy or someone beat a guy and we got pressure, or it was through a pressure that we called, where it really did work together this past week. I thought there was good coverage. Those younger guys, yeah, there are still some mistakes, but they're becoming less and less. And, that's we knew there's going to be some growing pains, but those growing pains have become less evident, but still not where we need it to be yet.
Raven?
I don't know how much you've delved into the Titans film yet, but with Will Levis coming in and taking over the starting quarterback, what differences have you seen from the offense that you guys took on week 5 to what you see now?
Yeah, you know what? He is very talented. We've had, anytime we face a new quarterback or a young quarterback, we do have conversations with our offensive staff just because they had conversations with them and visited with them, and they held him in very high regard. I think, his arm strength, his mobility, his decision-making, things like that, you can see it. And it feels like they're taking more shots with him because of his arm strength and his ability to handle some of that, the different looks and things like that. He definitely knows where to go at the ball. And just like any young quarterback, if they can get into rhythm, they do very well. And you can put together a tape of that where, when he's got time and he can, kind of go through his checks and things like that, that he's very accurate and a very strong arm.
James?
Gus, what have you seen from Taekwon Lewis this season, and just obviously seeing him bounce back? What does it mean to have just another presence in there that kind of plugs things up?
Right. I think there's another great story because he came in and he really was, hey, he was going to be one of those 4 through 8 guys, or 5 through 8, or 9 guys that rotate in there and steal some reps. We know we can trust him. And, what exactly are we going to get from him? But it's not surprising. His work ethic, his true professionalism, he comes in there and he's been very effective for us. I mean, as far as getting sacks and coming off the injuries he has, sometimes you see that where it comes back like his, not maybe this year, but next year. But he's been a real good surprise as far as, bringing some production out of that position. And, we've always been able to trust him, but I think that you're seeing, as the season goes on, where he's becoming more and more comfortable, more and more confident in his ability.
Joel?
Does a lot of those sacks were second effort? guys disengaging off their first rush and collapsing down the quarterback. We've talked about this before, but just how important is it, to keep rushing? And Samson was saying Buck kind of sets the tone for that.
Yeah, so much of it, especially last week, was play action maxes, where that's hard to get pressure on the quarterback. They got double teams across the board. You maybe can find one guy that gets a one-on-one if you're not bringing pressure and you're counting on the coverage to do their job. But and in those situations, Joel, you have to preach in the meetings. It's second effort. I know it's a double team, but you've got to turn, the run into pass, and it's got to that mindset. The quicker you can do that, convert run to pass, the better chance you have to get to the quarterback off second effort. And sometimes with younger players, you don't see that conversion as quick. But I thought our guys did a pretty good job with that, and we did a good job on the back end for, they had 50 some explosives. We were well aware of that. We knew we had to try to limit some of these explosive passes, and it allowed the rush to get there.
Here we go, right?
Kent?
Hey, Gus. What does Milo do that elevates the secondary? It seems like whatever happens with injuries, whatever the depth situation, he seems to get good and increasingly good play out of those guys.
Yeah, Milo has done a fantastic job. He works very well. With all level players, but especially young players. I think that, he doesn't waver on the standard. He knows exactly what it should look like. He knows there's going to be some growing pains. So he doesn't harp on every little detail of everything, but he can kind of create a big picture for them of what it should look like. And there's no wavering on it. And, we try to pride ourselves. I think every staff talks about it, but being a developmental coaching staff, Shane does a great job, allows us to have reps at the end of practice. But, the meetings with Mike Mitchell on Friday, Brent Jackson, those guys, Peyton, all those guys meeting with them. And it's that gradual, developmental process that takes place that hopefully when they get their time, Ronnie is a good example of that. But, specifically Milo, he's a really, really good teacher, very demanding, but I think that he doesn't, overdo it. He doesn't, you don't see a lot of his players, with that analysis by paralysis type mentality. I think he knows really what to detail and what to make sure they're on, and then lets them play after that.
Chap?
Gus, obviously the run defense hasn't been what it was with Grover out. He doesn't come back for another game. Isn't still whatever you do against Tennessee predicated on Derrick Henry and keeping him contained as much as you can?
Yeah, I think, each week, Chappie, we say, hey, number one, stop the run. But probably this week it's number one, stop the run. It's a special emphasis just because that's what really everything is based off of. If they can get the ball running and, now their play action passes become that much more effective. So, we've got to do a good job up front. You're right. Our stats don't show like we're knocking out the run. And, the past couple of weeks, there's been a give and take on some of what our philosophy is going into the game. But I think a team like this, where you got great respect for their run game and their ability. They can get 200 yards on you real quick. And, we've got to have a special emphasis on that part.
Guess you had to know the value of Grover Stewart to this defense interior. Did you think it was at this level that you were going to miss him this much?
I knew it was going to hurt us. But you try to switch and you can only, be sad or, be upset or whatever the feeling you have for so long. But we talked about it, Nate and I, just the other day about, the good thing is that you are developing some depth and you are getting a chance to see some of these guys play. I don't know if a guy like Tommy, how much he would have played, or Eric Johnson, so these guys are getting more reps. So in the future, I think it's going to bode well for us just because you're creating more depth. But, these guys, I mean, they played quite a few snaps the last time we played Tennessee. So, we're going to count on them. We're going to lean on them. But yeah, sure. You miss a guy like Grover Stewart just because, not only can he play his gap, but he can get off blocks and do some unconventional things as well.
Thanks, Gus.
Last one for Gus, Joel.
You just mentioned Adetomiwa Adebawore and Isaiah Land obviously got a sack the other day. What have you seen from those two guys developmentally?
I think with Tommy, it was never a question, Joel, about his ability to rush. I think that was his strong suit, that when we looked at him, we thought, shoot, he's strong. He's got the ability to rush. Maybe he can give us some inside pressure. The question for Tommy was, boy, how about the run game? When teams, double team him or good zone schemes, how is he going to be there? And I think early in the season, sometimes you scratch your head and it didn't look like it should look. But to his credit, I think the more and more he plays, you're seeing more strain from him. And that's what we need. It might not be where, he splits the double team and makes a play, but you do see strain and you do see him maintain the line of scrimmage more consistently than he did at the beginning of the season. So, credit him for that.